to this week's edition of World Crisis Radio, and this is Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. at the end of a busy week. And if you want to keep up with it all, go to tarpley.net, tarpley.net. 2 or 3 new commentaries from Russia Today with accompanying essays, something new just about every week or more. And, of course, buy those books, Surviving the Cataclysm, your guide through the worst financial crisis in human history. Absolutely indispensable to see what's going on and who's doing what to whom. Now, we have the intersection of the unfolding world economic depression with the crisis of the Obama regime, but now also the rise of aggressive, reactionary, and indeed proto-fascist or fascistoid forces on the far right as the alleged opposition. So the U.S. population caught, as usual, between the Wall Street Democrats around Obama, on the one hand, and these extreme reactionary, right-wing, radical Republicans on the other side. Now, let's go through the immediate depression situation, first of all. For the last 10 days or so, the Bank of Japan has been moving somewhat aggressively to prevent the Japanese yen from rising too much from their point of view. In other words, they fear deflation. And deflation is something to be feared, right? Every time an Austrian school ideologue says, well, we should just simplify everything and have an immediate deflationary crash, let me just ask you, have you got any debt? Because if you do, that debt will be multiplied into the stratosphere and the ionosphere and crush you. That is what deflation means. Anybody who's got credit card debt or any other kind of debt is going to be crushed. And, of course, for Japan, it means the inability to sell abroad. It's an export-dependent economy, tremendous stagnation. So the Japanese have been supporting their currency for the last 10 days or so. And this may be changing some things in the way the world is going. Too early to say. The Financial Times on Thursday, and that means Thursday the 23rd of September, has a front-page story about the prospect of competitive devaluations of the major currencies coming as the U.S. tries to respond to Japan, right? Japan is trying to drive their currency down. And what is the U.S. going to do? The way the Financial Times puts it is there's now a race between the printing presses at the Bank of Japan and the printing presses at the U.S. Federal Reserve. And this morning, meaning September 24th, Obama has gone out of his way to pick a fight with Prime Minister Wen at the United Nations General Assembly in New York over the proper valuation of the renminbi, what should be the quotation of the Chinese currency. Now, Wen is a tough customer. Wen, of course, defeated Obama ignominiously at the Copenhagen conference when Wen carried out a service to humanity by preventing the Malthusian fanatics led by Obama and his European stooges and that guy De Boer at the United Nations and the rest of that clique. They wanted to impose these lunatic carbon trading limits and carbon taxes, carbon prices, to strangle all world economic development under the pretext of carbon and global warming and the polar bears and the penguins, and you know the drill. Obama, therefore, much out of his league, right, way out of his depth, picking a fight with Wen over the valuation of the renminbi. We know that after several months of threats, blackmail, and so forth, the Chinese, in an evasive action, had agreed in May, June, that they would allow the renminbi, the yuan, the Chinese currency, to go up somewhat, but only 1 or 2% so far. Nothing much. So evasive action by China, and now we've got all kinds of threats, right? We've got also the Sander Levin in the House of Representatives threatening various kinds of economic retaliation. an exercise in impotence when already rebuffed Obama, as well he might. Every country has a sovereign right to manage their currency any way they want. And indeed, the most successful economic system we've ever had was the Bretton Woods system, in which the values of currencies were set by governments, not by cartels, monopolies, oligopolies, malefactors of great wealth, economic royalists, the Koch brothers who called themselves Koch, the cokeheads. No, not by any of those, but by multilateral agreement among governments. And since the demise of Bretton Woods, 1971, world economic development has gone negative. And that's why one of the reasons why we're in this depression. That's one of the long-term causes. Rather than try to get the Chinese to cave in and adopt the free trade model, why not look at the China model and imitate it? Imitate the successful features. Not all, but the successful features. The Chinese do not allow hot money in or out. George Soros can rail, but he cannot put $5 billion into China one morning and pull it out in the afternoon. He can't use this to destabilize the currency. China has essentially exchange controls and capital controls. They also have a rather robust state sector, and that includes many banks. Perhaps the majority of all banks are state-owned. That means they can control dirigistic credit. When the Depression loomed in 08-09, the Chinese government could say, okay, now put out more credit. We're going to keep our 9 to 10% growth rate. And the stimulus that the Chinese came up with, $589 billion, was in the same general league as the U.S., but it all went for real production, for infrastructure, for manufacturing, not for derivatives, credit card companies, insurance companies, and so forth, with the result that China is on track to pass the United States in every way in 2025, and the exceptionalists will be railing into the full moon, which we just had this week. The harvest moon of 2025 will shine down, and the Chinese will probably be up there. The Chinese will be celebrating on the moon in 2025, and the reactionary Republicans and Wall Street Democrats will be squabbling down here in the mud. We'll talk about the latest Chinese fast rail advances later on. The way out of this, obviously, you can call it industrial policy. That's a possible term you can use for what the United States needs. And a guy, Jeremy Wiesen of New York University Stern School of Business, made some very timid remarks about industrial policy in the Wall Street Journal on Monday, September 13th. Just some coordination to promote various things. I would point in particular the Craig Venter discovery of artificial life created in the laboratory will eventually have spin-offs. That can be commercialized, and any sane government would say, well, there's an area, thanks to Craig Venter and his team of scientists, where the United States is now the world leader. Turn that into products. Turn that into something you can sell. Don't let a bunch of religious fundamentalists on the one side and Wall Street asset strippers on the other prevent you from doing it. That seems to be what some of these people would be thinking of. But of course, then a chorus of reactionaries and proto-fascists in the letters to the editor of the Wall Street Journal then come on the scene and say, no, communism, Bolshevism, and all the rest. Yeah, as Miti pulls ahead. And we'll see you back here in just a minute.